Hello, I'd like to talk today about some of the influences in my photography. And most of those come from books and what you see in magazines. And I'd like to start with Don McCullin. Don McCullin for me was the very first photographer I think I became aware of in the 70s. His amazing work on the Vietnam War, showing the true horror and shock of that, really brought him to my attention. And I've followed him ever since. This is actually the book about his life, a fascinating read. And if you can get your hands on anything to do with Don McCullin, I highly advise you look at his work. Really amazing, and the black and white stuff is just fantastic. And he's still working to this day, and he's still touring and lecturing. And hopefully, I'm going to get to see him this year. Next, we have George Hurrell. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But his work with the Hollywood stars in the heyday of Hollywood, again, there's quite a few books of his work. Absolutely recommend you have a look at them. I love portrait work. I love storytelling portrait work, and I think he is one of the best. His black and white work around Hollywood, heyday of Hollywood, absolutely fascinating. Some really amazing pictures. His books are always worth looking at and studying. There's still a lot to learn in how he took pictures. Anyone that's been around long enough obviously is aware of Magnum. They've got lots of books out. Over the years they have covered everything. All of the bigs and all of the greats have worked with them. I really can't recommend enough getting a hold of a few Magnum books and actually working your way through them. A lot of what Magnum did was in the days of film, and it really shows, a slower, more precise way of taking pictures, in my opinion. And no one has got a bigger catalogue than Magnum. Some amazing books. Really recommend you get hold of a few of those and look at them. Not everything that influences me is photography. And like lots of people my generation, I grew up on graphic novels. 2000 AD was just coming out when I was a young man, and the artwork in there, and I don't think it's any surprise that I've become so interested in storytelling pictures. You can learn a lot. I mean, this happens to be The Watchmen, but there's many a great graphic novel, comic, and if you study the pictures in those, you get a real sense of how to tell a lot of information very, very quickly inside a picture. A lot of light and dark, a lot of bright colours, and really great storytelling. I highly recommend it for any photographer, even if you're not into the graphic novels, just to see what can be done. This is a really great book, The Art of Photography by Bruce Barnburn. It's difficult to describe what fine art photography is, but nobody does it better than him, and nobody explains what makes a picture interesting, dramatic, and artistic above a snap. And, I come back to this book time and time again. I've read it, over and over, and I really think it has helped me see photographs in a different light. Again, highly recommend it. Andy Gotts, this is his latest book, Andy Gotts the Photograph. He is probably one of the UK's best portrait photographers. And, he's done all of the stars, he's done all of the top people, but more importantly, when you look at his work, it is just incredible. It looks so simple. You look at one of his pictures and you think, I can do that, no problem, I can take that. It's not true. His pictures just stand out, not just because of the people, because in here there's a few people I don't even know. I'm not kept current with who's famous and who's not, and yet even those people, the pictures and the portraits really stand out. Highly recommend getting anything by Andy. Here is another great portrait photographer, Gregory Helzer. This is his 50 Portraits book. Again, he shot some of the stars, some of the big stars, working in America. People like Muhammad Ali, is one of his most famous portraits. But again, his portraits are just amazing, just absolutely fantastic, highly recommended. If you can get your hands on that, it's well worth a look. I'm not an art historian. I don't claim to have any great depth of knowledge about art or artists in general, but what I do know is what I like. And Caravaggio happens to be one of those artists. I mean, you can flick to any page in this book and the pictures are just stunning. And look, I'm not going to try and tell you I know a great deal about art, but what I can tell you is he portrays people in paintings painted with light in such a way that I often try and replicate. Obviously, I don't come close, but you can look through a book like this and just get so many ideas. Just flicking through this before I do a portrait session makes me think about it, gives me ideas. Absolutely adore Caravaggio. And last, and in my opinion, by far the best, is Anne Leibovitz. I think her work is absolutely incredible. Of any photographer who has influenced me, Anne Leibovitz is the number one. Her storytelling pictures are just incredible. You can just sit and look at any one of these and you can look at it over and over again. There is something about the depth of the pictures, the way she captures a story, the people she's got in front of. Because look, being a photographer is not just about how great a picture you take, but you've actually got to get there and do the work. And she has met the great and the famous, and she has taken their picture, and more importantly, they trust her to take their picture and make them look a certain way. And that kind of reputation is incredible. I mean, I've got a number of books by Anne Leibovitz. You know, if I ever see one anywhere, I kind of snap it up. Well worth looking at. So there's some of my influences. Some of the people that really influenced me, I haven't got any of their books yet. So Joel Grimes is online, fantastic photographer, does a number of training videos. Absolutely love looking at what he does. But what I do know is the more I read, the more I look, the more I study, the more I get out of my photography, the more I enjoy what I do. Thank you.